Hey, what's up, everyone? Today we'll be reading Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar. Oop, my mic is a little far. Let me fix that. All right, what's up, everyone? We'll be reading Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar today, chapters 1 through 5. Now, last week, I started on the pre-reading for The Bell Jar, and I mean, the main insight, besides what it was really actually hard to get an insight, and I think sometimes that happens with popular books because there's too much analysis around it. It's too brainy, and I want more of the heart and how people love the book or hate the book, or I kind of want more of that kind of reaction when I'm doing the pre-reading. I want to see somebody just geek out about the book, parody the book, gush about the book, but I didn't really see much of that. I saw a lot of intellectualizing and then kind of self-consciously deconstructing their own teenage enjoyment and stuff like that. Like, what I mean by that, I think that's kind of one interesting thing about this about Sylvia Plath. It's that you're not supposed to like it. It's kind of racist. It's embarrassing because you liked it when you were a teenager, but now now that you're smarter, you don't like it as much because it's not. I guess no one said this outright in the pre-reading, but but it's not intellectual enough. It's like the Catcher in the Rye of for girls, basically. And so there was a lot of baggage around it. I didn't have anybody I didn't see a lot of people just straight up love it. I think that could get into an interesting discussion on the discourse around books, how it sort of rides the waves of people's expectations and thoughts and criticisms and whatnot. But my aim in these streams is to sort of ignore the discourse as much as possible. I know that there's going to be some new leftists out there that are going to tell me everything's political, and okay, fine, yes, but I'm going to still ignore it. Does that make sense? I'm going to ignore the discourse as much as possible. I can't because I have my own thoughts on things. Racism as an issue matters to me too, and what's the word? I'm not going to pretend to be neutral because I can't be. I am who I am, and I'm going to have the reaction that I have, the reaction because of the thoughts that I have, because of the beliefs that I have and whatnot. But I think there's something to be said about trying to not lean so much into talking about the thing and lean more into just reacting to the thing. That the sort of the risk that you take of just putting your emotions out there is that you can't really pre-filter those emotions. The emotions are what they are, and they will so you can have embarrassing emotions, right? You can react positively to a character, right? You can react positively to a character that on TikTok is being reviled for being racist or whatever, right? And that's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to have an emotional reaction that doesn't match up with what people are telling you to think about that episode or whatever, right? So all of that could happen, and yet I think it's valuable to just lean into that instead of just joining the discourse right away. I think it's good to withhold and separate the engagement with the discourse from the engagement with the book itself. And so again, if I kind of dumb down everything I just said and I simplify it, basically, guys, I know there's a lot of talk around Sylvia Plath, around this book, and it's not all positive. In fact, it seems to be largely negative, especially from smart girls. Okay, I know there's a lot of talk, but I'm not going to focus so much on the talk. I'm going to focus more on the feels, all right, and see what I can feel, and maybe we'll all end up on the same side. I'll feel nothing, and all I'll do is get angry about the racism or whatever. Maybe that's what will happen, but I suspect that there's going to be actually a lot more happening than me just being angry about a specific racist moment. I think it'll be more complex than that. Or I hope so, because it would be disappointing if that's literally all I got out of this book. All right, so that's my expectations for this. Let's get into the actual book. So today I'm going to be reading chapters 1 through 5. That's about 70 pages. So I bought the Harper version of this book. I should actually link that later, so you guys can buy the same version if you want. I didn't know Sylvia Plath had her own little drawings in this, but okay. Little drawings, I'm sorry. That sounds like I'm... Sounds like I'm being a little condescending there. Okay, and I guess we'll go straight into. So there's a foreword by the editor, I'm guessing. Insights, interviews about the author. Okay, I'll go straight into the. How long is this foreword? I wonder, actually, you know what? I kind of want to read this one. I probably should have covered this during the pre-reading, but during the pre-reading, I actually bought a different edition of the book. I want to read this because I actually want... The editor here is going to say something positive about the book, right? And so far, there's been so little positive that's been said about the book on my that I found through my pre-reading that I actually do want to get a little bit of some insight from somebody who thinks positively about this book. So here we go. I'm not going to read slowly through this, but I just want to get some nuggets. I don't want to say nuggets. That's embarrassing. I just want to get some like some fire starters, something to get me going. Okay. So the bell jar. She would be 65 now. What year was this? This was written. Where's the... What? Oh, with these Kindle editions, have they started putting the... What the hell? Where's the... Okay, so I guess they smash all the information inside here? That's not even the case. Dude, technology. Things are getting worse, man. I swear to God. Dude, how do I find the freaking year? Jesus. All right, well... I guess I'll quit on that. Anyways, she would have been 65 at the time of publication for this book, and I think I read on Kindle. I think when I was purchasing this is like 2010s. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. If she didn't kill herself, then this book wouldn't have been published until the 90s and had a totally different effect because it wouldn't have been published until her mother died. That's an interesting that's an interesting journey, I guess, for this story. And by that time, Plath might have already become a major novelist, and people might have seen that book in a different light, but actually she died at 30. We're talking about path dependency of this publication, of the impact that this story had. Two Harper editors, both older women with interest in poetry, they thought it was juvenile and overwrought. Interesting. That's something I've heard someone else say online. They rejected the book. But they already had an American publisher. She already had an American publisher, Knopf. Pseudonym Victoria Lucas. Just a few weeks before her death. Lukewarm, deeply stung. Marriage to poet Ted Hughes is over. Panic about money. Coldest British winter. Two small children. The poems were getting love, but not her novels. Triggered her first suicide attempt. Oh no. The bell jar experience that triggered. Okay, so I see. I'm getting confused. A number of elements were into place. Abrupt departure of the central male figure in her life. Critical rejection. Isolation. Exhaustion. When I first arrived, when the editor first arrived at Harper in the summer of 1964, wow, okay, so she was actually there for this, or just after this, insane. There was no actual job for me. If you're as good as we think you are, you'll figure out something to do. Back in the good old days, I did a little checking. Virtually every poet in America was unhappy with their publisher. Donald Hall. I was just reading some Donald Hall a little bit ago. I'm going to skip a little bit of this. Ariel affected her a lot. After death, and women were joining consciousness-raising groups, and Plath was often the center of discussion. And Ariel made a big splash. A copyright snag. It was very popular among the literary woman circles in England and New York, it seems like. Okay, I'm going to keep moving. It had been published originally abroad by an American citizen, had not been published in America within 6 months of foreign publication. It fell under a provision called, interesting. Oh, they should not publish this thing, but I see. But they ended up having to publish the thing. Interesting. But that's just too much historical background. I'm going to move to... But it was making it a huge event. Plath was nearly a household name by 1971. There were groupies. The women's movement was in full bloom, with recent books from Germaine Greer and Robin Morgan, which unfortunately, I'm not too aware of. Conventional literature was in vogue. New fascination with death. Depression and mental illness were on our minds, just like these days. Right onto the bestseller list. Female rite of passage novel, a twin to Catcher in the Rye. Possibility of madness descending like a tornado into a typical bright young woman's life out of nowhere. That could happen. I could hardly believe it. Who said that? To Molly O'Neill, 17-year-old lifeguard who would... Okay. Yeah. So this was just like a... This was like a thing that helped, especially young women, kind of understand themselves in a way. Schizophrenic, okay. Hallway becomes a tunnel. A person approaching has an enormity. Things loom out of proportion. Alphabet letters on the page become impossible to decipher. Virtually everything seems unreal and dangerous. That sounds scary, by the way. Really scary. It's easy to forget that the bell jar brought us an understanding of the experiences that made such openness possible. Okay. Now that it's socially acceptable to talk about these things, it's easy to forget that reading the bell jar brought us an understanding of the experience that made such... So basically, we're saying that the bell jar was actually pivotal or instrumental in allowing us to talk about this openly. Before then, we really couldn't. Does the bell jar, and what about the novel's relevance to today's young reader? Does the bell jar still have any meaning? And I guess that is the crucial question. This novel was pre-drugs, pre-pill, pre-woman studies. Wait, in the survivalist mode of the 90s, suicide may seem like a loser's option. Okay, interesting. But did she write this in the 90s? Okay. Oh, well, so this seems to be different, okay, since the time of publication. When I asked an informal focus group of bright young women in their 20s what they thought about the book, they were unanimous. They loved it. Not true anymore. I actually write that comment down. Not true anymore. She was poor, so everything depended on her keeping her scholarships and winning prizes. If she was less than perfect, she could lose it all in a... This is a good thing to just sort of keep in mind, I think. The poetry soars over everything. Okay. Francis McCullough. All right, so I just want to do a quick check on Francis McCullough because I just feel like I should know who this person is. So gonna do a quick... Go on. Oh, no, my thing's not working. Sorry, I'm just going to not share it then. Just want to do a quick check on who this person is. Well-known editor who specializes in cookbooks, literary works, and poetry. She is now 85 years old, and she's been working in this industry for a long time. Got it. All right. And this was written this particular essay was written in the 90s, so it's actually a little annoying that Harper actually published this, and Kindle will not tell me when this thing was published, but do I have to like literally go to a different page just to figure out something that should take one swipe? So this was published in 2015, and Harper, you bastards, you didn't write a new essay in 20 years for the 50th anniversary edition? That's freaking annoying. Why did I pay $15 for a version of the book where you guys don't even try to do anything new for the 50th anniversary. You just like change the you just like change the cover. That's so annoying, guys. All right, well, how many minutes are we in now? Now I'm actually properly starting. We're about 25 minutes in, right? Now I'm actually properly starting chapter 1. Here's what I gained from the foreword. I gained a little bit of sympathetic history of Sylvia Plath from just a sympathetic voice. It's stuff that I already knew, but kind of framed it, helped me to really specifically focus on the fact that she was really poor, and that by doing this thing, which was basically unpublishable and shouldn't have been published because it would have ruined relationships and all this stuff, something that would have been really controversial to publish in the States, by publishing this thing, she actually made it more, she made girls kind of discover themselves to some extent, and also made it possible to talk about these things. So those are some of the takeaways there. But that's not really the experience of the book itself. So now we get into the experience of the book itself. Here we go. Queer, sultry summer electrocuted the Rosenbergs. A bit of American history. I forget that part of American history, actually. It's been a long time since I thought about that. Was that related to? I forget. Socialists? I didn't know what I was doing in New York. I'm stupid about executions. Love that sentence. Because I literally just said the same thing, basically. The idea of being electrocuted makes me sick. Nothing to do with me being burned alive all along. Okay. This gives a little bit of that juvenile, right? I definitely hear some of my friends back in high school, my emo friends, but I don't know if you guys know what that aesthetic was. This definitely gives like emo. Okay. I thought it must be the worst thing in the world. Am I unfair for laughing at that in 2024? Because this was written in the 60s. New York was bad enough. The fake country of freshness. Okay, a little bit of cynicism there. The car top sizzle glittered, dry cindery dust. Okay, I kept hearing about the Rosenbergs. All right, couldn't get them out of my mind. Eggs and bacon, behind the face of Buddy Willard. Okay, so the cadaver's head. And so now I kind of do need to know about the Rosenbergs, because this is actually messing my reading up not to be able to imagine what happened there, what she's thinking about. So I'm going to fix that little thing that isn't showing. Okay, let me make sure that you can see my screen when I switch. Okay. All right, so I'm going to quickly do a search for Rosenberg execution. Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. Spying for the Soviet Union, socialist, communist, as I was vaguely remembering. Top secret information about radar, sonar, and jet propulsion and nuclear, executed by the federal government at Sing Sing in New York. First civilians to be executed, and executed during peacetime. The sons maintained they were innocent. Trove of Soviet cables, yes, so they did spy. Okay. And I guess the whole thing about the execution was delayed, 11 p.m., died. Ethel's execution did not go smoothly. 3 electric shocks, removed the strapping. Heart was still beating. 2 more shocks. Smoke rose from her head. There we go. Ugh. Du Bois was like, okay, so there was a lot of military dictators. There was a lot of criticism, okay, from the Jewish, no, from just people. I can't tell who was criticizing, but people were criticizing. But presumably progressives were criticizing. All right, intense. All right, got that bit out of the way. Back to the passage. Uncomfortable, expensive clothes, college, Madison Avenue. Bernard College? I actually just forgot. Where was she? No, she was at Smith, right? But this is a fictional character, so yeah. Sylvia Plath was at Smith, and I don't know what school is at Madison Avenue. But sure. I was supposed to be enjoying my life. Okay. Black patent leather belt and pocketbook. Picture in the magazine. 12 of us were working on martinis. Men, all American bone structures. It looked like everybody would think I must be having a real world. This is like the same phenomenon when you're like, everyone envies you on Instagram. Look what can happen in this country. So poor, gets a scholarship, ends up in New York. I felt very still and very empty, the way the eye of a tornado must feel, moving, dulling along in the middle of the surrounding hullabaloo. There were 12 of us at the hotel. So she likes the free gifts that they're using because she was poor. Hotel where they're both men and women. The Amazon was for women only, mostly girls with wealthy parents. It's kind of an interesting... That's an interesting situation to be in there. They were all going to posh secretarial schools like Katie Gibbs. So so that's another area. Okay, so not only is she a girl, right, but she's a poor girl hanging out with society girls in New York. They look bored, sunroof, yawning, painting their nails, keeping up their tans. Bored with yachts, bored with Switzerland, bored with Brazil. They make me sick. I'm so jealous I can't speak. I hadn't been out of New England except for this trip to New York. You know, and I feel like this is a classic, you come from the countryside or you come from outside America and you go to college, you go to Harvard, and you're sort of like out of your element. That's the sort of experience that she's having right now. Doreen, okay. Doreen came from a society girls college down south. Cotton candy fluff, blue eyes like marbles, a mouth set in a perpetual sneer, an amused, mysterious sneer that the people around her were silly. She was sarcastic and actually funny. Okay, interesting. So she's not just a bad person. Um, Pocketbook covers made out of the same materials as their dresses. Okay, they had a matching pocketbook. What's a pocketbook? I don't. What is a pocketbook? Oh, it's like a tote. I can't tell which one. Anyway, but purse of some sort. Starched cotton summer nighties, but Doreen wore these full-length nylon and lace jobs. You could have see-through. Okay, so like it, yeah. To imagine that, like looks rich. She looks rich. And Doreen doesn't care about the deadlines. JC's ugly as sin. I bet that old husband of hers turns out all the lights before he gets near her, or he'd puke otherwise. That's definitely okay. What what's funny about the way they speak, and this is way back when. What's funny about the way they speak is that they I feel like it influenced it really feels like it influenced like college. Sorry, the way high schoolers spoke when I was in high school, in the 2000s. So that's something going on there. JC had brains, so her plug ugly looks didn't seem to matter. She read a couple of languages, knew all the writers. Couldn't imagine them trying to have sex. But I suddenly didn't think they had anything to teach me. Smart girl. Betsy, okay, so we have a new character, Betsy, straight from Kansas with her bouncing blonde ponytail, and she talks about male and female corn in Kansas. So, what's happening here? We're building this world, but I do find myself kind of not that interested in the language. I was expecting more from the language, but I don't really feel these characters don't feel super full to me. Maybe it's just too connected to reality, right? To real people that she knew. But yes, it feels too. These characters, I don't like love these characters. Pollyanna Cowgirl. Zappin, welcome to the stream. Why do they always round up Yaleys? Okay, Buddy Willard is a name I heard multiple times. I'm forgetting who he is. Let me quickly remind myself. okay. It's okay, I'll move on. Theater hour rush, which is a whole thing that happens in New York, I guess. Doreen looked terrific, strapless, white lace dress zipped up over a snug corset affair that curved her in at the middle and bulged her out again. Bronzy polish under the pale dusting powder. She smelled strong as a whole perfume store. Cost me $40. Scholarship money. This dress was cut so queerly I couldn't wear any sort of bra under it because I was skinny as a boy. Okay, I looked yellow as a Chinaman. Am I offended? Not really. I looked yellow as a Chinaman. It's actually kind of hilarious, actually, at this point. Now, I could say this now because Asians aren't considered, Asian males aren't considered, or Asian females especially, but Asian males aren't considered as unsexy as we used to be. So when I see I looked yellow as a Chinaman, I'm not as hurt by it. But if I read this maybe 20 years ago, and if I was younger, I would probably be more hurt by it, yeah? Because 20 years ago, nobody knew what a Korean was. There was no such thing as like a sexy Asian guy. So I might have been more hurt by it 20 years ago. Ordinarily, I would have been nervous, but actually being with Doreen made me forget my worries. So this is like she's kind of in with a cool girl. So I guess part of the tragedy is that she's going to lose Doreen at some point. The man in the blue lumber shirt and black chinos, cowboy boots. He was going to come for Doreen, the young, sexy, cynical, smart city girl. Two nice girls, big white toothpaste ad smile, party. Doreen has suddenly gone dumb. That sounds boring. Join me in the bar. Oh, so apparently this is a good-looking guy? He nodded in the direction they've been following. Their laughter should have warned me. How about it, Doreen? He must have been smiling the whole time. Well, all right. Hey, you. He had stopped the cab so abruptly that the cab behind bumped smack into him. Wait, what the hell just happened? Okay, man left us on the curb, went back, handed a bill to the driver. Girls from the magazine moving on from row with nothing but bridesmaids. So he paid for us. Okay, he paid for them. I'll just say us. I'm with the narrative here. He was the type of fellow I can't stand. A short, scrunty fellow. Yes. Poor, short, scrunty guys. That's a great word. Scrunty. I don't even know. I don't think I've ever heard it now that I think about it. Have I ever heard this word before? I keep showing the wrong screen. Scrunty is a short, scrunty fellow. It's chiefly dialectical. It's like stunted and runty together. Scrunty. Yes. I'm 5'10" in my stocking feet, so she's tall and skinny and literary and poor. and smart enough to get a scholarship to go to New York. So we know this kind of character, yeah. I think if you're in a high school, everyone knows. If you're in a high school with a significant number of people, everyone knows this. Everyone knows this person, right? Tall, lanky, sort of gawkish, like a giraffe, super smart, right? Super literary, goes off to college, goes off to Harvard, goes off to some amazing place or whatever. Gets all the scholarships, but now she's slouch. Probably this short guy is not going to make a good match for her. When I am with little men, I stoop a bit and slouch my hips so I'll look shorter. I feel gawky and morbid as somebody in a sideshow. The guy who spoke to us was 6 feet. And this is, I guess, useful information for teenagers, because, when you start going out where people are drinking and men and women are meeting each other, you'll always get like these groups of guys, and they'll obviously send the good-looking guy to kind of bring you over. but maybe like the rest of the guys are maybe not as good looking, right? So you're just hoping they at least have interesting personalities, right? Be aware of that dynamic there. It was so dark in the bar, I could hardly make out anything except Doreen. She stands out. She looks silver. Well, what do we have? An old fashioned. Look at Doreen. The probably 20-year-old girl. An old fashioned is like a very it's a sort of manly drink. Ordering drinks always floored me. I didn't know whiskey from gin. Of course you don't. Well, most country girls, but like just most people when they're like 19, 20, 21, they're not going to know that many. And you're not going to like a lot of these things unless you drank a lot. Yeah. Buddy Willard and the other college boys I knew were too poor to buy hard liquor, or they just didn't drink at all. I'll have a vodka, I said. With anything, just plain intense. This is a little embarrassing. She's embarrassing herself by trying to pose as strong. Just plain. Which is, it's crazy. You don't want... Don't do that. So by the way, the slick thing for Doreen to do is just to order for her friend, her country friend. Doreen should have just ordered 2 drinks for both of them. The waiter came up then, and the man ordered drinks for the 4 of us. So at home, in that citified bar, in his ranch outfit, which is like the weird thing about this guy. She wasn't saying a word. She only toyed. But the man didn't seem to mind. He kept staring at her. Dude. What do you do? The man said. Here in New York. He dragged his eyes away from her shoulder. I'm a DJ. Lenny Shepherd. I know you. I'm famous as hell. Where do you come from? What's your name? Slid his arm around her bare arm and gave her a squeeze. Now, when I think slid his arm around, I'm thinking the far side. So it is... And the thing that surprises this out-of-towner is that Doreen doesn't respond. She doesn't She doesn't like jerk like away. So she's letting him come onto her, and this is actually shocking for the narrator. She just sat there, dusky as a bleached blonde negress in her white dress, and sipped daintily at her drink. My name's Ellie Higginbottom. I come from Chicago. So this moment is actually the first sort of interesting moment in the entire book so far for me. It's been kind of a plotting journey of just like learning some of the characters. But here we finally have some tension. Kind of wish this happened a little faster. I think we could have done away with the exposition, honestly. The first 10 pages, you're asking for a summary. You don't even have to know anything. We just have the narrator who's in the city. Ellie Higginbottom. And she's uncomfortable. She's uncomfortable with the situation, clearly. Because there's sexual tension. There's sexual tension and somebody's coming on to Doreen. Well, Ellie, what do you say we dance some? Oof, orange suede elevator shoes. His mingy, I don't know how to say that. Is it mingy or, I'm going to try looking it up real quick. Mingy. Mingy. His mingy. I'm thinking mangy, but mingy. Okay. His mingy t-shirt and droopy blue sports coat made me laugh. A man in a blue outfit. She's superior to one kind of person. I'm not in the mood. Staying away from the other guy. Spooning up the hunks of fruit, Lenny was grunting each time she lifted the and snapping and pretending to be a dog or something and trying to get the fruit off the spoon. Giggled. Oh man, this man is all horny. He's just all horny, all coming onto her, and Doreen is just laughing. So this is gonna develop. He's gonna take her. Okay. I began to think vodka was my drink at last. Like a sword. Made me feel powerful and godlike. I better go now, Frankie said, standing up. What a high, silly voice he had. Nobody paid him any notice. Hey, Lenny, you owe me something. Shut up and scram. Oh, Ellie will come, won't you, Ellie? Wink. Dude, whole different fucking era, and very, honestly, damn, dude, you can't. What a fucking era, man. It's like hard for me to say that it's like gross. It is gross. That one, I don't really know how to deal with this feeling. Oh, Ellie will come, won't you, Ellie? Wink. You know, like, the guy is clearly moving everything towards his one objective, which is sex with Doreen, right? Sure, I'll come. So we got rid of the short guy. I wanted to see as much as I could. I certainly learned a lot of things this way. But pretended that's the way I knew things were all the time. That's the way she learns. She doesn't have a lot of... I mean, I don't know if you know, but like once you're in your 20s, you're gonna see these persistent characters at the bars, pushing on the girls that they're interested in to have sex. So, and it's a different era now where that's less Yeah, it's hard to code it. It's hard to code it because it's like I have to decode, re-encode because it's a different era. But human nature, I mean, guys are horny, and like girls have to be defensive to some extent. Doreen is letting a lot in actually here. I wouldn't have missed Lenny's place for anything. Okay, he has an amazing place. It was like a ranch, except it's inside of a New York apartment house. Great white bear skins. Crazy. Crazy to have this. I wonder how rich you have to be in New York at the time. If you do it in this day and age, this would be crazy expensive. I wonder how rich he actually was at that time. But he was definitely not poor to be able to do this. Acoustics, he said, grew smaller and smaller. Stopped 12 o'clock. Disc jock. Sunflower. Isn't he a card? Isn't he a card like? Isn't he interesting? Like a fascinating person. I wouldn't have a chance if he tried anything funny. Oh, interesting. That was not what I was. I thought she was giving herself over directly. 20 grand's worth of recording equipment. So he's a very successful DJ apparently. Okay, so the music went to a stop. Frankie Vamoosed, you ought to have somebody. I'll call up another guy. That's okay. You don't have to bring up some other guy. I didn't want to come straight out and ask for somebody several sizes larger than Frankie. Lenny looked relieved. Honey bun. They started to dance. Oh, dude, I just realized I'm not reading it in the way that I normally read it. My bad. I just realized it's gonna be much easier for you to follow where I am. Okay, my bad. I completely forgot about this. The bed started to roll out into the room. Okay, yeah, so this was like a sofa bed. Wet, depressing. I felt myself shrinking to a small black dot against all those red and white rugs and pine paneling. I felt like a hole in the ground. There is something demoralizing about watching two people get more and more crazy about each other when you are the only person in the room. That is something that doesn't happen a lot. It's actually a little funny. Like in Asian cultures, this just wouldn't happen. In America, in Western cultures, in Western party cultures, this sometimes can happen. Where when I say Asian, I mean East Asian, or specifically Korean. I mean, I can't speak so much for like China and Japan, but this wouldn't happen in Korea, because in Korea, what would have happened is the guy, what's his name, Nelly, would definitely have, if Frankie left, Nelly would definitely have called somebody over if he was Korean, so that there's at least two for two, right? That this wouldn't. This is such an unusual situation in a place where people are always in a culture like Korea's, where people are always sort of like checking how comfortable other people are, right? But I can see this happening with my Western friends. You know, I'm right now in Vietnam. I'm mostly hanging out with Westerners, and it's like you really don't give a shit. It's crazy. It's like, yeah, dude, I'll be like totally rizzing on this one girl with another girl, with her friend on the sofa watching, like, and just not give a shit at all. This is it's just so wild to me, honestly. But yeah, this happens. This happens. Two people get more and more crazy. You're just watching and they're not giving a shit. They're drunk. Okay. Kiss, drink, close in on each other. And by the way, this is the 60s, so she's not directly describing what they're doing, but it's going to be very sexual. I mean, like, I will be explicit here because some of you kids are not going to be good at imagining. Dude, the dude has a hard on. He has this like fat little thing swelling down there, and he is rubbing it on her, man. That's definitely happening. Like, they're like getting very sexual at this point. Lenny gave a terrible roar, and she bites him. God damn. Okay. They're not gonna be sexually explicit about the kinds of things that'll happen. But now you can see he apparently crossed the line for her now. So maybe he did exactly what I was telling you he was doing. Cross the line. Glass sailed out of her hand. Couldn't see her face. Oof. Further. He pulled her dress down so her breast came out. Breasts had popped out of her dress, swinging like full brown melons as she circled belly down on his shoulder. What does that mean? Thrashing her legs in the air and screeching, and then they both started to laugh and slow up. And there we go. They're actually still in it. Okay, for a second I couldn't tell which direction this was going, but this is leading to sort of like a sort of raucous sex, thrashing her legs, trying to bite her hips through her skirt, and then she was like, I can't see this anymore. They're going to have sex. Like an insult. And it's insane that Doreen and Lenny, to me, were just basically beginning to have sex. So it vindicates everything that I was saying. I was saying he was sticking his throbbing rod on her legs probably, and dancing and like rubbing up on her. He even like pulled off. He began to. He hoisted her on her shoulder. Her like dress was starting to come off. Her breast came out. That was a scene that our narrator's seeing, right? To sort of like just sort of primal sexual energy, just like kind of like playing out in front of her. So she decides against the party. She's a little depressed. 43 blocks by 5 blocks away from my hotel. That's very far, by the way. If she's in Manhattan, the 5 blocks are probably the avenues, which are really large, and 43 are the streets, which are shorter. But still, it's a long walk. Maybe I would guess it's like an hour. Maybe 40 minutes, 45 minutes, I don't know. 45-minute walk. And when I walked into the lobby, perfectly sober. Okay, because she took the whole walk. My ears went funny. A big, smudgy-eyed Chinese woman staring idiotically into my face. So obviously this character doesn't like Asians. It was only me, of course. Actually, I don't know what the "it was only me," of course, means. Is she saying it was only me, as in it was only the way I was imagining her appearance or her face, and I was hating her looking at me because I was feeling insecure? Is that what she means by "it was only me," or does she literally just mean I was the only one in the elevator? I'm gonna go with the former. The sympathetic reading is going with the former. You couldn't open it, yeah. It was my own silence depressing me. She wants that attention that Doreen got. Oh wait, but this is just general phone people. Okay, my bad. She's laughing to herself at night alone, thinking about how pathetic her life is. Wait, so I need to actually go and find Buddy because Buddy Willard was mentioned at the very beginning, and I actually kind of forgot the initial. I forgot the initial characterization. Okay, or what there was left of it. So this is at the very beginning. The Rosenbergs. We get the face of Buddy Willard, who was responsible for my seeing the face in the first place. So this is like a friend of hers from childhood, it seems like. Okay, I'll go back. So Buddy is like a childhood friend that helps us, that she who ended up going to Yale, so he's also a smart boy. So basically the two of them were the smart people, and I guess their hometown people wanted them to be together or something like that. The two yellow lines are guidelines for reading, which I use for streaming so that you know where I'm reading in between the two yellow lines. My eyes are between the two yellow lines. I want you to be able to see where I am. They were supposed to go together to this place, but oh, he was in a hospital somewhere. I see. So they were really close friends, and they couldn't so they were betrayed by her. She can't go to bed. She can't sleep after seeing that scene. Okay, so let me do a quick pause. After the first chapter I thought was really slow. God, and and the descriptions of the characters weren't very compelling for me. I wasn't really. It was kind of bringing me into the world, but it really wasn't. It kind of built up very slowly. This little episode with Doreen basically getting close to just being fucked by a stranger in front of her in the stranger's house. Was a whole ass episode that happened, and that definitely accelerated the drama. Baths. Woman and baths. Woman and baths. I remember the ceiling over every bathtub I've stretched out in. The tubs. So for her, it's a sort of unique and special experience. And she feels herself when she's in a hot bath. I feel myself growing pure again. It feels like holy water. Doreen, Lenny, Frankie, New York. Okay, so now we're restarted. As if I had a split personality or something. That's kind of like foreshadowing. Okay, now the question is, did she get raped? So that's like in my head. The night maid. Let me lie down. Her body was warm and soft as a pile of pillows. Vomit, okay. She fell asleep. I made a decision about Doreen that night. I decided I would watch her and listen to what she said, but deep down I would have nothing at all to do with her. Deep down I would be loyal to Betsy and her innocent friends. It was Betsy I resembled at heart. So here, this is actually kind of pivot. Well, the initial pivot. I don't know how important it'll be for the rest of the story, but so far what has happened is we have a character who is an out of towner who doesn't understand society life, comes in, watches this sort of seductive, sexy, smart, world weary, experienced friend of hers, Doreen, who's witty and sarcastic and whatever, and kind of takes her in. Uh, be gross with a guy that she just met while in a taxi, right? This DJ guy. And she's horrified and she wants to purify herself through this hot water bath. And now she's like, I can't be with Doreen. Okay? So she's sort of rejecting the city at this moment. She's going to be with Betsy, which I think Betsy's the Kansas girl, if I'm correct. Betsy is also such an obviously country name, and Doreen is such an obviously city name. It's like it's kind of like it's a little on the nose. Quietly, I didn't lock it. She was gone. Ooh, I like that. I like that it ends. This chapter ends with us knowing nothing about what happened with Doreen. We don't know. Did she just get drunk? Like, was there violence? Was there rape? We don't know. And in that, oh man, that's so crazy. There's a whole separate side narrative where Doreen, the only person that Doreen could trust with like a secret like getting raped, she never tells to, right? There's a whole other story that could happen, which, because it's not the kind of thing you really talk about, yeah, as a girl. It's really hard. It's really hard to talk about it. It's emotionally like there's too many emotions that go on when you get violated. So, damn. The fact that we don't know makes that so painful, so painful. We just have to like imagine. Like I hope she just had a bad night, and I hope she's just throwing. I hope the reason that she came to Doreen, sorry, I hope the reason Doreen came to the narrator is because she was just really, 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 really drunk and feeling sick, but kind of feels like that wasn't the case. Kind of feels like more than that happened. Oof, painful. Ladies' Day. Okay, I'm gonna look up Ladies' Day because I don't really. Ladies' Day? USA? Oh, so it's now okay. So it got rebranded. Women's Day. That makes more sense. It was started as a Women's Day in 1909. Did it ever get called Ladies' Day according to Wikipedia? Let me look for Laddie. No, I just got Vladimir Lenin. Okay. But maybe, let me, April 27th. That sounds like a different, last Saturday in April? That's a whole separate thing? Oh, no, this is First Ladies' Day. I'm gonna guess that Ladies' Day is basically International Women's Day, except that, except in that era they were just using it as like a the colloquial term was Ladies' Day, which we wouldn't call it Ladies' Day anymore because it kind of sounds like stilted and kind of old-fashioned, a little bit sexist, right? We wouldn't say it that way anymore. Before I came to New York, I'd never eaten out in a proper restaurant. French fries, cheeseburgers, like deli, like kind of those like delis. Those are not proper restaurants. In New York, you get a proper restaurant. You know, and I just want to say something. As somebody who grew up in Las Vegas, which is a city, it's a city. Um, when I went to Chicago, I was like, man, this is a whole ass city. Like Chicago was such a different world for me, and New York is even more than that. And it's hard to really explain unless you. It would take me a lot of effort for me to try to paint the picture that would kind of convey to you if you've never been to like the various American cities or the world cities actually. If you haven't really traveled and seen it, like it's so different from just your small town life. It's so different. Um, and she's going through that right now. No matter how much I eat, I never put on weight. I don't know why, but I think all literary people have the same metabolism. They're all skinny. Okay? Full of butter and cheese and sour cream. Yeah. Amazing. Expense accounts. Never felt guilty. Almost everybody I met in New York was trying to reduce, but actually she was trying to eat more. Okay, so pause here. We're introduced into a new setting, and actually I'm not terribly interested in this one, right? The previous one was more tense. I don't even know what interesting thing could happen at the Ladies' Day banquet. All right, so I might start reading faster because I'm like, what could possibly happen, right? Doreen was missing. That's interesting. Wait, so this is like the next day or something? Wait, did I miss a transition there? Okay, this, I mean, I just have to infer it. There was no specific transition. I don't know if it's the next day or the next week or whatnot, but I'm inferring that if Doreen wasn't there, this was pretty soon after the event. Where are we here? A delicate, ladylike splatter of applause. I can't tell how sarcastic that's being. It sounds a little bit sarcastic. Huh. They set her place next to mine for some reason, which is weird, and the chair stayed empty. Oh, I see. She's with Lenny Shepherd now. I hope you enjoy that. Oh my God. It's just that my grandmother always cooked economy joints, economy meatloafs, and had the habit of saying, I hope you enjoy that. It costs 41 cents a pound, which always made me feel I was somehow eating pennies instead of a Sunday roast. And I was highly aware too of the relative cost of the meats that I was eating at home. Okay, my mom wasn't as intense as his grandma. But I knew that the steaks and the meat that we were having at home was not as good as what was out there. So so now here we are, and she's kind of overwhelmed by the food in the kitchen. She's looking at the bowls of caviar. That's funny. Okay. And this is so me, right? I actually when I was in, just like a big part of my identity was just like, dude, if there's food, I'm gonna eat it. Like, I was voracious in public. I was unashamed. It's the kind of thing that rich people would never do. It's like it's like the thing that like a proud person, like a poor person could take pride in and just like go and eat food, like hella fucking food. But like that's because like a rich person would never do that. It's embarrassing, right? It's like it's unpleasant for in like a fashionable society. It's unpleasant to just be like eating a lot in front of other people, and it's something I had to grow out of. I was growing out of my old poverty. As I grew into an adult, I stopped doing that, because it's embarrassing to be eating so much. But here she is, just like staring at all the food. They need to eat. Yeah. Oh wait, hang on. That's interesting. She's staring at this caviar, and I think she got the second bowl of caviar or something like that. The one that was meant for Doreen. And now we're transitioning to her grandfather, so we're getting some personal history, which I think is more interesting now. Head waiter, country club. Grandmother drove in. Brother and I alternated with grandma. And grandfather always serves Sunday supper to grandmother as if we were the club guests. And he would introduce dude, this is something, I forgot how to pronounce this thing because I've never really eaten it. Vichy swa. How do you pronounce this thing? Because Anthony Bourdain has a whole famous chapter on this cold soup. And I don't know how to pronounce it. Vichy. Dude, I want to know. All right. Vichy. Oh, it says it right here. Vichy Swaz. Vichyssoise. 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 Okay, it's a cold potato soup. And interesting, I actually didn't realize that the potato soup that we use in Japanese Western food is a vichyssoise. It's a derivation of the vichyssoise, which then went to Korea. There's a whole thing there. Vichyssoise. Vichyssoise. Here, I'm gonna just. It sounds weird when I'm just saying it out loud.
Vichyssoise.
Soise. Soise. Vichyssoise. Okay, so I'm assuming Americans say vichyssoise. Vichyssoise. That is really hard to say actually right now for me. All right, back to this. A vichyssoise for me is weirdly enough one of my first, and I didn't even realize this when I was reading Anthony Bourdain's memoir, but he has this whole like multiple paragraphs on his first experience with this cold soup and being mesmerized by it, and it's a beautiful little passage there, and I didn't even realize it, but it was actually one of my first favorite soups too. It was just the Japanized Koreanized version of it, okay? Because there's a whole history of how that vichyssoise came into Korean food. But that little potato soup, I fucking loved it when I was a kid. Crazy. Okay. And now it's me and Anthony Bourdain and Sylvia Plath's narrator all loving the same potato soup. Okay. All right. Moving on now, though. Caviar and anchovy paste. Great. Love it. I'm glad to hear unusual foods coming out. The joke was that the grandfather would give her all the caviar he possibly could. I never intended to get married, and he couldn't have afforded it anyway. So this is a poor person's dream. You don't like potatoes. Also, Sudeep, Notes from the Underground. Hey man, that's cool. Let me know what you're thinking. What you're making of it is what I'm trying to say. What you're making of it as you read it in the server. Okay, under the cover of the clinking water goblets, chicken slices. All right, so you know what? One thing about this chapter is that we're kind of observing the food of society people through the eyes of a poor person. And this is a chapter that I feel like you're not really going to appreciate unless you know what it's like to look on the food and just like the oozing of the gravy and everything, and just like, oh, I wish I had never had that in my life. I envy that. But the funny thing is that if you were me 20 years ago, right? A teenager reading this, and I was an actual poor kid. An actual poor kid reading this would skim through this. You know why? Because I can't even imagine it. Like, I don't even know what she's talking about. So this chapter would be boring as fuck. Like, it's just like, oh, food. Like, it's not until you actually break that sort of like, you have that experience that you kind of get it. So, ironically, the kind of people that you would expect to like really empathize with this would not empathize with because they haven't had the experience yet. So it's like kind of paradoxical there. Like if you asked me 20 years ago, I would have been very bored by this chapter and I would not have remembered this. Wait, what's trick? Which trick? I discovered, after a lot of extreme apprehension about what spoons to use, that if you do something incorrect at table with a certain arrogance, you will get away with it. Fake it until you make it. I learned this trick the day JC took me to lunch with a famous poet. He wore horrible tweed jacket and gray pants. Very formal restaurant full of fountains and chandeliers. Everyone else was looking amazing. Perfect, immaculate. ate his salad with his fingers. Sorry. I didn't expect it to be that barbarian. I was not ready for that. That is gross. Leaf by leaf while talking to me about the antithesis of nature and art. That is awesome. That is awesome. I couldn't take my eyes off the pale, stubby white fingers, traveling back and forth from the poet's salad bowl to the poet's mouth. No one giggled or whispered rude remarks. The poet made eating salad with your fingers seem to be the only natural and sensible thing to do. This is interesting. Right now, the first couple chapters is a sort of like young girl's guide to New York society in the 50s and 60s. This poet gives me like Allen Ginsberg vibes. So that's a whole thing that happened there. But okay. It's okay to break rules because, hey, look at that slob of a poet that ate a salad with his fingers in the New York restaurant. Sophisticated words make the food more appetizing. Yeah, for sure. People do. Yes, that also is a thing. It's the context of that restaurant where everyone's wearing the suits, which makes it more ridiculous. None of our magazine editors, and by the way, I mean, if we're gonna talk about sophistication of the food consumption habits, I mean, Americans are fucking slobs, man. I have a whole rant about this. I'm gonna spare you the rant, but dude, all of American food culture is basically handhelds. You want to hold it in your hand so you can drive and eat at the same time. What the fuck, dude? That's not a culture. But I'll stop there, okay? Cold chicken, avocado, crab meat, caviar, vichyssoise. Dude, we're getting the whole shebang here. Avocados are my favorite fruit. And so we're actually connecting the sensual experience of food with grandfather quite a bit right now. So this narrator's sort of most like heartfelt connection to the world, besides the bath is another thing, but the bath is more spiritual. The more earthy connection that she has to the world comes from her grandfather and from food. Okay, this is the most connected to the world that she is. Everything else is sort of like ideas and people, and but like this is like connection. Melting grape jelly, French dressing, and there is something about French food that feels more organic than the typical American dish. Oh, this is not a French dish, though. Sorry, my bad. But it feels very French the way it's. I don't know a lot about French cuisine, but it kind of gives me French vibes. Okay. The crab meat tasted bland compared to her grandfather's avocado salad. Fur show. Betsy. No longer worried about competition over my caviar. Definitely poor person's mentality, yeah? Licked it clean, wonderful. Hang on, what? All-purpose neckerchief, mink tails and a gold chain. The fur show, so it's some event that she missed. Hilda nipped down to the wholesale fur warehouses and bought a bunch of mink tails. Okay, so that's like a little workshop event that they went into. Hilda, sure enough, she was wearing an expensive looking scarf. Okay, yeah. How do you make yourself? You're a young girl in New York City. How do you make yourself stand out? You learn these little tips and tricks to look the part. Yeah. This reminds me of my friend whose mother-in-law made him a full-ass Goyard fake, and that's like her hobby. and it looks real as hell. Like, I was like, that looks like a Goyard. I mean, I don't really have an eye for luxury fashion, so maybe it doesn't really look like a Goyard. But to me, to my middle class eyes, it looks like a Goyard. And yeah, you look the part for society, for your society. Yeah, that's what the city does to people. Not to me, though, boys. Not to me. I will always look like a little bit of a savage. Who knows, though, what happens when I get married? I mean, okay, now I'm doing way too much personal reflection, but okay, you know what? All right. Moving on. Making hats, special school for making hats, new hats. Amazing. I miss Doreen. Crazy. I love this, actually. I love the back and forth. Because now she has this sincere envy of Hilda. And Doreen was the one that was sarcastic, who had the little sharp wit. And she's missing Doreen now because Doreen's off gallivanting, to do a little bit of a reversal on the words, on the gender of the words. She's doing a little bit of gallivanting with this Lenny fella, yeah. And the narrator really thought she was done with Doreen that night when she had the bath, but now she misses her. I was dropping clean out of the race. Now, JC, I think, is the... I'm actually forgetting already. JC, I think, is the old... let's look for JC. She is the leader or editor of this group or whatever. The lady that's kind of helping... Yeah. The boss. The boss of this magazine. The boss of this magazine. Okay. She is zoning out a little bit right now. The narrator's zoning out, talking with Betsy. JC, she's lying and saying that JC called me up. She's pretending she wanted to go. Doreen had come into my room earlier. What do you want to go to that assy show for? Assy is such a funny word. None of us... I don't think I've ever used that word in my life. Assy. Mingy, assy, scrunty. We're getting some good words here. Mingy, scrunty, and assy. Lenny and I are going to Coney Island. Lenny can get you a nice fellow. The day's shot to hell anyhow. And then the film premiere. Society life. Working in a magazine. How glamorous, right? If she had Instagram at the time, she would take all these selfies of her life in the city, getting access to all these events, and it would be the envy of their town. For a minute, I was tempted. The shows did seem stupid, but the thing is that she is a country girl, or she is a kind of like upstate girl, you know, or Boston girl, right? And she does want the furs. She wants all of it, and she doesn't want all of it. She doesn't know what she wants. She wants to lie in bed and then go to Central Park and lie there. After Doreen left, I wondered why I couldn't go the whole way doing what I should anymore. Then I wondered why I couldn't go the whole way doing what I shouldn't, the way Doreen did. She is depressed. Depressed. This is what depression feels like. She doesn't know who she likes. Yeah, strong extrovert vibes here as well. Introvert vibes as well. But she doesn't know who she wants to be. Does she want to be more like Betsy? Does she want to be more like Doreen? Does she want to be witty and above it all and making fun and being dumb and meeting boys? That's not really her. She's actually disgusted by it. On the other hand, does she want to be like Wilda, or what's her name? Will, like the W girl, making furs and looking amazing, but kind of being like a square, and being made fun of by Doreen, right? Does she want to be on the side of the ones who gets made fun of? She's in the city. She's disoriented, and she doesn't really have a community here. She's lonely. She doesn't feel sexy, is part of the subtext here. Somebody's actually calling. She's surprised that somebody's calling. Hello, JC. Oh, she's angry. Are you going to come into the office? Some of these affairs were optional. So now is she going to stand up for herself and be like, no, I wasn't going to go? JC had said some terrible things to me. Okay, whoa. Wait, so I'm a little confused by this jump. And then this jump to Betsy is that's interesting. Is this something that's going to start happening more and more? We're jumping from our conversation with JC to our conversation with Betsy, and there was no time transition at all. Like, we just jumped. And I don't remember. I think I saw this in the pre-reading. Actually, the chronology of things, if I remember correctly from the pre-reading, I didn't really pay a lot of attention to this, but I think the chronology of things starts getting very confusing. Am I right? Because this is confusing to me right now. So JC scolded her pretty intensely, pretty brutally, and here we are. She's making her Juan entrance. Doesn't your work interest you, Esther? Now we have her name, Esther Greenwood, I think, right? Esther Greenwood? I got all A's. I want to work in the magazine. I was college correspondent. We're finally talking about work. I had a well-known woman poet and professor on the faculty championing me for graduate school. Oh, she's older than 21. She's closer to like 22 or 3. She graduated college, I think, or she's about to graduate college. Maybe she's doing like a quick summer internship before her senior year or something like that. But she's on the older side of college. I was imagining her as younger. But that makes more sense with the drinking and the whatnot. You can learn a lot in a month in this magazine if you just work. If you don't bother. The girl who was here before you didn't bother with any of the fashion show stuff, and she went straight to time. That was quick. Okay, so it's funny because this is something that she kind of wants, but doesn't even know that she really wants, right? She's talking to the boss that's gonna set her up for life. And this is the thing that she was destined to do, right? She won all the awards. She's a writer. And now here she is writing, and she can't even focus on her work. And she's getting scolded and getting some life advice, and she's giving these sort of half-hearted, sort of sepulchral answers. Which means like it's like dead in tone. She's gonna study all over Europe. She's gonna write poems. Usually, I'm ready to talk about it right away, but right now she's actually confessing she really doesn't know. She's realizing that she doesn't know what she wants at this very moment. French, German, wanted to learn German. Oh, she really struggled to learn German. Publishing. You ought to read French, German, mercilessly, and probably several other languages as well, Spanish, Italian. Hundreds of girls flood into New York thinking they'll be editors. You need more than just French. Okay, so I was right. She's going to be a senior, so this is between her junior and senior years. I was taking one of those honors programs that teach you to think independently. I would have to write some whole thing on James Joyce. I hadn't really read Finnegan's Wake yet. Maybe I will learn German, but the thing is that she's just saying things. She doesn't believe what she's saying. Nothing she says comes from certainty. There's only two moments of certainty that two moments of sort of pure expression we've had from this character so far. The first one was when she was in the bath. In the bath, she was being restored. The second one was when she was reminiscing on the food and her grandpa. Those are the two moments that she actually feels feelings, like kind of genuinely. But everything else is just like hesitation, uncertainty. She has no conviction in her life. And for me, this is weird and interesting. There's like a bit of weird resonance here because I'm a tutor, right? And I'm a tutor of, I mean, to be frank, I'm a tutor of primarily wealthy kids. And there's so many opportunities for them, but they don't really know what they want to do because everything's just being given to them. Now, this is a massive generalization, right? But still, just roll with me here. And like it's hard to have a pure desire, a clear, clarified, driving desire when everything's just sort of up in the air. She's thinking of maybe doing botany, right? Because botany is less popular than art and like literature. Nowadays, if anything, it's almost the opposite way around, but back in the day, it was like that. I loved cutting up leaves, putting them under the microscope, bread mold and the odd heart-shaped leaf in the sex cycle of the fern. It seems so real to me. Physics was death. It's not real. So my mind went dead on all these formulas. It's so funny. A book written to explain physics to college girls is hilarious. Like, and hilarious. It's hilarious because it's like on the one hand, it's like so direct and in a weird way honest. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna have a separate book for college girls. But like, imagine trying to publish that today, dude. Oh my god. She watched balls roll down slides and listened to bells ring. And by the end of the semester, the girls had failed and I got my A. No, it can't be too hard. One girl got a straight A. Who is it? Tell us, they said, but he didn't say. She was a good student. I told you. This little nerd, this little depressed, introverted nerd, plucked out of the upstate and now is in the city. I think this particular character. I mean, some people think physics is really easy and biology is really hard. And I think the personality. I think there are certain personalities that are more geared towards one or the other. Like if you love abstractions, you know, physics is great. You love physics, you know, just like symbols, abstractions, math, right? But if you love like sensory experiences and like the concrete world and like examination, observation, you know, it's like biology makes. Earlier, what was the passage? She says she loves cutting up leaves and examining them, right? It's kind of a. I think a lot of that is a personality thing, you know. Somebody's more into theory and somebody else is more into facts, right? And ideally, if you want to be an intellectual, you want both. You want both, but your personality might lean you one way or the other. What I couldn't stand was this shrinking everything into letters and numbers. Exactly, the abstraction thing. Instead of leaf shapes and diagrams, they breathe. With words like keratin and xanthophyll, instead of leaf shapes and enlarged diagrams, the holes leaves breathe through, and fascinating words like keratin and xanthophyll on the blackboard. Instead of these things, we get these formulas. She hates formulas. She knew chemistry would be worse because now it's even more formulaic. Ugly abbreviations, decimal numbers. I went to my dean with a plan. I needed time to take a course in Shakespeare because I'm an English major. She knew, I knew perfectly well I would get a straight A. So why to go to the classes? Okay, so she's making a funny little argument about why she doesn't need to do science. Oh, and Mr. Manzi agreed. Okay, she made it sound like she wants to just sit in on chemistry but not actually get graded. Yeah. And she kind of flattered Mr. Manzi by telling him, oh, she really, really wants to listen to the lectures, but would rather be graded on something like Shakespeare. Okay, that's an interesting and clever argument, I think. It's a good way to flatter a professor while also getting what you want. Passed my petition. Yep, totally got it. A real step in intellectual maturity. I had to laugh. I went to the chemistry class 5 times a week. Didn't miss a single one. And completely ignored it, pretending it was just his voice was a mosquito in the distance. And she wrote page after page of villanelles and sonnets. He thought I was writing down all those formulas, not for exams, but just for the pure love of knowledge. She duped him. Okay, in chapter 3, we just got we got a bit of personal connection with her grandpa. We got her work and her studies and everything, but not a lot of drama. Let's get some more action here, okay? Ooh, okay, yeah, we are doing a little bit of time travel. I don't know just why my successful evasion of chemistry should have floated into mind there in JC's office. What we're doing is we're taking this little episode and we're retroactively turning it into a flashback. Does that make sense? I didn't know we were in JC's office, but suddenly now I know we're in JC's office. Okay, it's a little bit abrupt. She felt sorry for lying to him. Two famous writers, man and lady, 6 stories to New Yorker, 6 to JC. I didn't know the magazines bought stories in lots of 6. Yeah, 6 is a lot. 6 is a lot. Must be a very famous writer. JC said she had to be very careful at this lunch because the lady writer wrote stories too, but she had never had any in the New Yorker, and JC had only taken 1 from her in 5 years. Had to flatter the famous guy and not hurt the less famous guy. Girl, lady, woman. When the sheriffs in JC's French wall clock waved, there was a... She looked terrible but very wise. Don't let the wicked city get you down. Don't let the wicked city get you down. Don't let the wicked city get you down. That's an interesting... Don't let the wicked city get you down. Okay. I wished I had a mother like JC, then I know what to do. My own mother wasn't much help. Hated him for dying and leaving no money because he didn't trust. Oof. I feel like this is kind of a famous line, no? Am I wrong? Okay. Shorthand and typing. Okay, so there is a bit of a thematic. I feel like it might help to have some background knowledge, but shorthand and typing are skills for clerks or for like secretaries, right? If you attend a meeting as a man in a corporate setting, you would have like what was the term for this? Stenographer? You would have somebody take down the notes for you, who would be a woman, and the way that the woman would take down the notes for you is I mean, you can't write as fast as you can speak, right? So you would learn a specialized shorthand, and then type it all out afterwards as notes. I might be a little bit off. I think I'm like 80% correct and maybe 20%. Like there's probably some facts that I'm wrong on, but like that's the general gist. Okay, and this is very much a woman's profession, right? But this is the mom passing down a skill that will help her daughter. Okay, it's a practical skill and a college degree. She will be safe. Because, yeah, I mean, well, that's the world we live in. I'm going to move on. Wait, Ladies' Day waitress. We're still in that scene. So we're in the scene of the Ladies' Day's banquet, but we're simultaneously in the scene with JC. So we are time traveling quite a bit. We're kind of simultaneously experiencing multiple scenes. Huh. So this is the sort of technical decision as a writer that Sylvia Plath is making to kind of convey the insanity. So now I'm a little bit unsettled because I don't actually know, quote unquote, actually, if there is an actually, I don't know where the narrator is. For example, it's possible that the narrator is in the sanatorium, is in the mental health facility, and it's just sort of remembering this entire story, but her memories are jumping back and forth, right? I'm unsettled because the transitions, and I think actually as a high school reader, you won't have a lot of trouble reading the sentences because there are some hard vocabulary here and there, but generally speaking, it's not that hard to read the sentences. But if you are in high school, the thing that I think you might like miss as you read this, besides all the real world knowledge that I have, right? But like the things that you might miss is like transitions. Like she's transitioning between different times and places very quickly without any hint, right? Over here, mom. Over here, JC in the office. And over here, suddenly we're back at the banquet. The first time I saw a finger bowl was at the home of my benefactress. So actually, I don't really know what a finger bowl is, but I'm guessing it's just for cleaning your hands, yeah? And she's like cleaning her lips on the napkin. She was alive, so we're gonna send thanks to the benefactress. She wrote Philomena Guinea a long letter. How wonderful it was to live in the campus. How she was learning so much. She read one of Mrs. Guinea's books, crammed from beginning to end with long suspenseful questions, which is I think we're being critical here. Would Evelyn discern that Gladys knew Roger in her past? Wondered Hector feverishly. And how could Donald marry her when he learned of the child Elsie hidden away with Mrs. Rollmop on the secluded country farm? Griselda demanded of her bleak moonlit pillow. I don't know if you know, but we are tearing into Philomena Guinea. Okay, this is bad writing. It's embarrassing writing. Because it's so obvious. You don't need to ask that question when you're writing if you just write well enough. So basically, this smart and maybe arrogant girl is getting scholarship money thanks to the philanthropy of Philomena Guinea, but the writing itself is really cringe. Guinea answers the letter, invites her, and that's where she sees the first finger bowl. Cherry blossoms. She thought it was a soup. And she drank the finger bowl water. Embarrassing. I don't know what it is, but I can tell it's very embarrassing. That's so funny. It's the kind of shit that I've done that kind of shit too in my life, man. It's actually I've done it in Japan once when I was 22. I didn't know it. I'm not gonna get into that whole story, but anyway, yeah. Sort of rain. It's sort of like dirty rain. The sort of rain I imagine they must have in Brazil. Actually, people talk about the racism and the whatevers. Dude, Sylvia Plath was just a poor chick who lived in England. A poor American chick who lived in England, and she died before she was 30. She actually didn't have a lot of life experience, man. She died relatively ignorant. So her saying these things, these sort of lazy thing. There's actually a bit of Sylvia Plath that still seems to me the character that she's describing. The sort of like she fumbled into society life, and she's still at the age of 30. She's still sort of learning to absorb how to be like a proper person, but she's learning it in England, right? Sylvia Plath. And so she's kind of in the middle of the development of a poor girl, a poor American girl, kind of learning to be fancy, posh, educated, literary. I'm not talking about the character anymore. I'm talking about the actual author. And I'm imagining what life she had, right? And plus she's, feeling like a failure and like an imposter. She feels so she has all these other issues going on in her head. She's not spending all of her time in Italy on vacations, right? And in Brazil, and she's not spending all of her time just lounging around, meeting people and being sociable. She's spending all of her time torturing herself over her work. She's not actually getting that much social interaction in her life, right? She kills herself when she's 30. Before that point, the world she knew was very limited. And so, of course, she's going to have some of the kind of like the sort of lazy racism of her society. And she's not really going to have like fully examined. I mean, not of course. I mean, there is a moral argument that she could have done more. I haven't looked into her life enough to be able to criticize her, but I'm willing to bet that most of the people on TikTok that are complaining about her racism have done less research into Sylvia Plath's life than I have done in the few hours that I've been streaming. Seriously, I'm pretty sure I know more about Sylvia Plath's life now than these kids on TikTok calling her out for things, right? So I see this sentence as a very lazy and shitty sentence, right? It wasn't the kind of nice rain that rinses you clean, but the sort of rain I imagine they must have in Brazil. Like, bro, that's like not a cool, like that's not an interesting description, right? And it's a sort of like Western privileged, it's just leaning on some sort of like trope that Brazil is dirty, right? And so it's a little offensive. But at the end of the day, that's not really, I don't really care that much that this is a lazy piece of writing, because there's other things in the work that seem interesting enough to make me keep reading. And I gotta keep ranting on this actually, because I'm like kind of like getting a bit of trauma about this, and that's the problem too. We want everything to be perfect these days. Everyone should have these perfect little opinions with their perfect. You know who can have perfect opinions? Highly educated rich people can have perfect opinions. You know why? Because they can spend their entire life basically trained for PR. But poor people cannot have perfect opinions, right? Poor people who's primarily struggling about their jobs and about their livelihoods and kind of failing in their marriages and kind of barely making it in life, they can't fucking have perfect opinions. Perfect opinions takes a lot of time and a lot of trial and error, and you can and rich people can accelerate their perfect opinions, like how if you're an athlete or you're like an actor or some public figure, you're gonna pay somebody to teach you quote unquote media training, to help you have the right opinions in public. Like
That's not something that just comes naturally, dude. But here, you can't be racist, you can't be sexist, you can't. Dude, just let people write. Let the 24-year-old write. Let the 25-year-old write. Let the poor person write. Let the Indian write. Let the African write. Let the girl write. Let the boy write. Let the racist boy write. Let the racist girl write. Just let them write. Let them get the shit out in the world. It doesn't. Not everything has to be perfect, right? But now, in today's day and age, with focus groups and multiple layers of just like editing and production companies and publishers just trying to trim out everything that could be possibly controversial, you get nothing. You get no imperfections. And is our world better off for that when we're all just raging about the one thing that somebody said? Ah, God, it's so annoying. We're killing this era, and I think my generation, the millennials, were a huge part of this. We killed art. We killed art. You can't have art when everything has to be perfect. Like, it pisses me off. So I saw these TikToks where they criticize the racism or whatever. Oh God, it just. All right, rant over. Moving on. Okay, where's the Brazilian rain? It flew straight down from the sky. Where are we? We're leaving. Oh, my bad. I was being stupid. Ladies' Day is the name of the magazine, and for this whole time, I thought we were talking about International Women's Day. Okay, Ladies' Day is the name of the magazine. We're coming out of the magazine, the office. There was rain. Coffee saucers, hot sidewalks, hiss. Spewed out into the rain, Betsy and Hilda and Emily, a new girl. Betsy and Hilda both are kind of squares, and Emily, a prim little girl with a bun of red hair, a husband, 3 children in New Jersey. Again. Now we're at the movie premiere. June Allison was really someone else. Elizabeth Taylor, but also somebody else. Boneheads with names like Rick and Gil, a football romance. Technicolor. They feel obliged to wear lurid costume. This is partly how I feel about 3D movies sometimes. Except it's not about costumes with 3D, it's just about the graphics. And Marvel movies to some extent too. You know, just like spending so much time on the graphics instead of like the human drama. Most of the action in the picture took place in the football stands. 2 girls waving. Really? It's an interesting way to tell a story. Or in the ballroom. Then sneaked off into the powder room to say nasty, intense things to each other. So she really did not like this movie. The nice girl was going to end up with the nice football hero, and the sexy girl was going to end up with the nobody. Because the man named Gil had only wanted a mistress and not a wife all along. So, interesting. I like this. This is like a bit of a meta-narrative, right? Because now, and I just came off of reading Hamlet, right? And in Hamlet, there's the play within the play. So here, we're getting the movie within the story. And the movie is a nice girl versus a sexy girl. So I guess the nice girl is Esther, and the sexy girl is Doreen. And the sexy girl is going to end up with nobody. So Lenny's going to drop her. But the nice girl is going to get the nice football hero, but we know that's not true. If anything, the person who... Oh, no, sorry. I'm going to pause on. I'm going to stop the thought I had because it's kind of wrong. Anyway. Moon brains. That's such a great word. You know, like today's internet lingo is smooth brain, right? Moon brain is awesome. Wait, what did I get? Scrunty, mingy. There was a great third word that I forgot now, and moonbrain. Gonna save that one. All right, here we go. I felt in terrible danger of puking. Was it the movie or was it the caviar? Hotel. Don't you feel good? No, I feel like hell. So do I. I'll come back with you. Betsy loves the movie. So Betsy and Esther are very different people here. Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. Stepping on the feet. The bloom was gone from her cheeks. Her drained face floated. Oh, they're sick. From the food. From the caviar. They both puked. In the cab. From the cab. Hey, he protested, driving through a light that had just turned red. You can't do that in my cab. You better get out and do it in the street. But they already puked 3 times in the cab. Damn, dude. That cab driver is being very nice. But yes, I've had that experience too. Throwing up while drunk in the cab. I mean, out of the cab. I always threw outside of the cab, but still. It would only I mean, I think I've done that, what, twice in my life? It's embarrassing. You don't want to do that. Usually after a good puke, you feel better right away. There's nothing like puking with somebody to make you into old friends. I strongly recommend reading this before I read this, because if you try to read along with me, there's no way you're going to keep... Well, there are moments where I slow down because I find it interesting, but, dude, there's going to be parts where I'm just going to skim through. This is a cute sentence. This is a very cute, kind of like, like I can remember some of my high school friends talking like this. There is nothing like puking with somebody to make you into old friends. It's like, it's the kind of wit that I think you develop in the 21st century as an American, yeah? If you read books. I love puking. I love puking with friends. It makes us closer, right? That's the kind of thing you say to try to be a little bit funny and ironical, and it's witty, right? I thought I was losing my guts and dinner both. Yeah, so she has pretty bad food poisoning. This is not just like alcohol poisoning. This is pretty bad food poisoning. She needs to get water. I'm such a dad right now. Like she needs to drink water. She needs to get electrolytes and water right now. I could feel the winter shaking my bones and banging my teeth together. Yeah. They were pounding on a bathroom door. The person kept banging. It was like Emily. Just a minute. Slowly rose. Flushed the toilet for the 10th time. I knew it would be fatal if I looked at anyone, so I fixed my eyes glassily on a window. and put one foot in front of the other. The next thing I had a view was of someone's shoe. What the hell? It was a stout shoe of cracked black leather, quite old. Hard green surface, hurting my cheekbone, kept very still. Blue cornflowers. What is going on? Pointed at me. Hard green surface? So she's face down on this hard green surface. Cornflowers. Sleeve. Oh God. Cornflowers is like a pattern on, like an embroidered pattern on the thing, on the bathrobe. Rational region. Far above my head. That's a good sentence. She's all right now. The voice came from a cool, rational region far above my head. I did just get it. The big connection. Are you talking about the understanding the setting? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is how threading works. Just to go back to that lesson. It was a man's voice. No men were allowed to be in our hotel. How many others are there? 11, I think. Only 10. So like a doctor of some sort, because everyone got sick from the caviar from the banquet. Hotel nurse, poisoned. The whole lot of you, never seen anything like it. The whole of your lot. Somebody was standing by my pillow with a white cup. Drink this, they said. Right? The singular they being used as far back as 60 years ago. Drink this, you'll feel better. Because we don't know who they are yet. Ooh. Butter, chicken. It's the stuff that she was eating that day. She's getting the smell of her own vomit right now. My eyes moved tentatively to the skirt behind the cup. Betsy, I said. Betsy, nothing. It's me. It's Doreen. Doreen's the one who's not sick because she wasn't there. Her blonde hair, halo of gold. Okay, we're turning her into a little bit of an angel here. Her face was in shadow. Tenderness. She might have been Betsy or my mother or nurse. We're getting tenderness from Doreen. That's interesting, right? Because that's not the kind of character we normally have from Doreen. Doreen's the wild girl, the sarcastic girl, the world-weary girl. She had some of the broth. I thought my mouth must be made of sand, which, by the way, that's why you need water when you're throwing up or when you have diarrhea. You have to drink a lot of water and get a lot of electrolytes because you get dehydrated very quickly. Well, you almost died. I guess it was all that caviar. It was the crab meat. I don't know what this is. It's dated. It's an old school word. Any of a group of amine compounds of unpleasant taste and odor that was formerly thought to cause food poisoning. Okay. I had a vision of the celestially white... Oh, wait, how do you pronounce this? It's kind of an interesting word. Ptomaine, it says. By the way, guys, just a random side tip. It really does help for you guys to learn. It's hard for me to... the Kindle app doesn't allow me to zoom. But if you kind of notice, right next to ptomaine, there is that T-O with the dash above, and then the accent mark, and then the M-A with the dash above and the N. That's the pronunciation key, and you guys should learn it because it makes it a lot faster to learn how to pronounce words instead of having to like press it.
Ptomaine.
Right? Like it's a lot faster. So just put a little bit of effort. You put a little bit of effort, like 30 minutes of effort up front, just practicing on your own, like learning the key and just practicing it on a couple dozen words. Those 30 minutes will pay off so much over the next 10 years because you're just going to learn words so much faster. Okay. Poison. So I kind of like this sort of symbolic layer where like investment is the right word. Thank you for saying that actually. I like this sort of symbolic meaning where, the time that we had the most excitement out of Esther was when she was eating the food. But the thing that she was most excited about actually poisoned her. It was good to have Doreen back, right? And just again, to be obvious about this, the pivotal first moment was she said she really, really was done with Doreen. And now she missed her, and now she's like an angel. Okay, so there's sort of back and forth, White Swan, Black Swan. Wait, what's the name of that movie? God, I'm getting confused. Is Black Swan the name of that movie? It is, right? Yes, it is. The 2010 film. Is Doreen how we are supposed to be or not? Or do we like her? Do we dislike her? Does she represent what we want to be? Does she represent what we don't want to be? Presents, special express delivery. They can't afford to have you lot running around saying you got poisoned at Ladies' Day. You could get sued. Oh, you could sue them, I mean. I began to feel if it was a good enough present, I wouldn't mind. Nobody's opened, everyone's flat. But I brought you yours first. Let's see what it is. This is so funny. And it's actually such it's a very organic, very like girls moment. I vibe with this hella, it's like hell yeah, presents. And I don't mean girls in a derogatory way. I hope you guys know this. It's like I could say the same thing with boys. I mean, you get presents. So it's like hell yeah. 30 best short stories, 11 more. Something to read. Oh, I wonder what the reaction will be. Where's mine? The mirror with her name and the daisies on it. Doreen looked at me and I looked at her and we both burst out laughing. Oh, I guess the mirror with her name and the daisies on it is like a little gift that was at the banquet, probably. I might have just missed it when I was reading. I kind of skimmed certain parts. You can have my soup if you want, she said. They put 12 soups on the tray by mistake. We had so many hot dogs. Bring it in. I need that soup. Oh, interesting. So chapter 4 ends a little bit with the sort of moment of friendship. And it's the first time in this story so far that we actually have a moment of lighthearted just banter and connection socially. Up until this moment, Esther never really seemed like a socially connected person. The only social connection right now she has is with Doreen. All right, final chapter of today's stream. Here we go. It's a big chapter, right? It's like 15 pages then. Hang on, let me just double check. 15 pages. It's kind of similar to the other ones, I guess, yeah. 7 the next morning. Oh, we get a time transition. Okay. I wasn't hallucinating though, right? The transitions between the office scene and the banquet scene and then the post-banquet scene, those are all kind of just like blended in. But this one, we're just actually transitioning us forward. That's kind of, like I was not expecting that. I was kind of expecting it to be kind of flowing in and out constantly. I wonder if it would be a better story if it just didn't tell me the transition and just said the telephone rang, right? Would that be a better story? Because that feels like it would be more consistent with the style so far. Slowly, I swam up from the bottom of black sleep. how sorry she was about the crab meat. So yeah, JC had already telegrammed, so who could possibly be calling? It's a man's voice. Miss Esther Greenwood, slight foreign accent. Oh, how sexy. Constantine, I couldn't make out the name. Mrs. Willard and her simultaneous interpreter. Dude, I forgot. Who's Willard? Who's Willard? I don't remember Willard. Oh, the Buddy Willard. Yeah, Mrs. Willard, the simultaneous interpreter. Let me go look at this. This is back in chapter 2, I think. All I could think of was that I'd given my phone number to Buddy Willard's mother so she could give it to a simultaneous interpreter she knew at the UN. I guess this is like a job connection, yeah? I could imagine the sort of simultaneous interpreter Mrs. Willard would introduce me to when all the time she wanted me to marry Buddy. She'd arranged a job as a waitress at the sanatorium. Okay. So by the way, there's a little bit of sarcasm here that I didn't really notice the first time I read this, but here we go. I could imagine the sort of simultaneous interpreter she would introduce me to when she wanted me to marry Buddy. How attractive is this interpreter, guys? How attractive is this interpreter? Less attractive than Buddy. Okay, this mother is definitely not going to introduce this daughter or this girl to a more attractive guy. Does that make sense? Is that an inference that you guys could have made on your own? If not, okay, that's a little bit of practice there just from reading. We just inferred how attractive this Constantine guy is. Classic inference. Then I remembered Mrs. Willard and her interpreter. Of course, I'd never given her credit for introducing me to a man named Constantine. I collected men with interesting names. I knew a soccer. This is an interesting. I like this little sentence. So that's an interesting sentence. It's a very literary girl's way of experiencing the world. I already. Good on you guys for being honest there. He was tall, ugly, intellectual, Catholic, which ruined it for both of us. Okay. She can't marry a Catholic. Attila at the Boston School of Business Administration, definitely not her type. Would you like to see the UN? I can already see the UN with a little giggle. He seemed nonplussed. One of those words that you would learn on the old SAT, but now you no longer learn. And so I'm going to guess you don't know what it means. Undisturbed, nonplussed. Good word. He was unaffected by this little joke and evasion. He was unresponsive in this context, so it would say, I can see it from my window. She's explaining to the foreigner. Silence. Maybe you would like a bite to eat afterward. I detected the vocabulary. Oh, so this is a very awkward exchange right now, by the way. I detected the vocabulary of Mrs. Willard. By the way, I made a wrong inference earlier too, and I'm just correcting it now. The wrong inference was that this was a job connection. I thought that Mrs. Willard was trying to get her to meet him to get a job in interpretation, but it sounds like it was actually just a, hey, there's somebody I know. He's a nice boy, maybe, right? Something like that. Had one of those arrangements where you open your house to foreigners, and then when you go abroad, they open their house to you. Yeah. I now saw quite clearly had simply traded her open house in Russia for my bite to eat in New York. Instead, hey, oh, I see. He's doing this out of duty. He's doing this out of duty. Okay. She could have cashed in on her credit by traveling to Russia and getting a house, but instead, she cashed it in by saying, hey, I have a daughter of a friend. I have a daughter of a friend in New York. Could you please treat her out? Something like that. So he's doing it. He's doing it out of duty to some extent. And now she's feeling grim. Building up a glamorous picture of a man who would love me passionately, but now it's a duty tour of the UN and a post, and I said the word duty, right? I said the word duty, I called it, and a post-UN sandwich. And I'm not just bragging here, because it's kind of silly to brag. I mean, I feel like if there's a bunch of literary people who watch this video, they kind of won't understand why I'm saying this, but part of the whole point of these streams is to show you how I actually correct my reading, self-correct as I go, and I fix my understanding as I read, and that helps me to stay engaged with the book. Okay, I think the big sin of American English education is that we focus only on themes and motifs and symbols and literary techniques, and we don't actually focus on comprehension. Like, how are you going to genuinely enjoy a symbol if you can't comprehend the symbol when it first comes, right? Comprehension is technical, it's boring, it's dry. It's like, you have to like make logical inferences, and you have to kind of understand like suggestions, right? Comprehension is fucking hard. But without the comprehension, you just go straight into Spark Notes and like figure out the themes from. So you're not working bottoms up, you're working top down. You're trusting Spark Notes. You're trusting that somebody at Spark Notes read the book and actually understood the book and just is telling you all these themes and stuff. And so you're going to use these themes and just sort of like scrounge around for evidence of these themes, right? I get it. You know, you don't have the time to read it as slowly as I do because you're rushing, because you have 5 other classes that you have to study for. I get it. I understand why Spark Notes is the optimal strategy at that time. But school curricula reward this, right? School curricula reward this because they just want you to write an essay on the themes instead of actually breaking down a passage. School curricula could correct this by actually having you parse the sentences and just like straight up be like, this is what happened. Like a summary exercise is a separate thing. Now, that would be a boring exercise, and that's why teachers, I don't think, would like to do it. But it is, I think, really important if you want to learn to enjoy literature on your own. Here we go. I tried to jack up my... So, what's happening here? Dude, it's out of duty. He's just doing it because out of politeness. And now her emotional tension. She was really excited to meet this Konstantin, sexy Russian guy from abroad. You know, maybe she can learn some Russian through him, right? Remember what what JC said? JC said that you need to learn more languages. Maybe she can learn some Russian through him, right? But actually, it's just out of duty. He's not actually interested in meeting somebody. It's just repaying the favor. Probably he'll be short and ugly, and I will look down on him in the way I look down on Buddy Willard. Buddy Willard, by the way, who's a guy who went to Yale. I knew I would never marry him if he were the last man on earth. Buddy Willard was a hypocrite. Ooh, nice little turn. I thought he was the most wonderful boy. And he started looking at me. And just as he started looking at me more, I discovered what an awful hypocrite he was. Okay. I kind of don't... This could have been a cuter paragraph, honestly, but it sort of does a bit of giving away the cards right away. Discovered by, I guess she's trying to foreshadow, but I kind of don't like this paragraph. The worst part of it was I couldn't come straight out and tell him what I thought because he caught TB. So you don't want to go tell somebody who has a serious illness, tuberculosis, what she thinks. What you think, I mean. What was the point of getting dressed if you're staying in bed for the morning? Obviously, she's such a depressed person. She doesn't get out of the room. She doesn't get freedom. She doesn't get freedom. She doesn't get freedom with her choice of boys, I think is what you're maybe saying. When I first arrived at the Amazon hotel, a dwarfish bald man carried my suitcase up. Of course, I looked out. I went to the window immediately to check the view, and this bellhop was kind of teaching her. He was staying kind of longer than expected. He shut the door with a rude slam, and it's hilarious. I knew what this was. Obviously, the guy just wants a tip because this is America. You tip for these things. And and Esther thought actually that the guy was trying to like come on to her, like spend more time with her, like kind of being a creep. Later, when I told Doreen about his curious behavior, she said, "You ninny, you idiot. He wanted his tip." Damn, she always is calling out people for being short. That's definitely a thing. What's with the short people? That's definitely a thing. Zap it. Thank you for calling it out. I didn't even notice. So we have a main character who is not just poor and struggling and kind of bumbling, but she has a little bit of that height elitism, huh? She's, by the way, I think she said she was 5'10", so she's actually a shockingly tall. She's a really tall girl, 5'10". 5'10", by the way, for you non-Americans, is like 178 ish. So she's very tall for a girl. But yes, she does have a little bit of that. She's also an arrogant girl. I mean, she's arrogant. She's been a little bit arrogant a couple times. She's not been super arrogant, but she has been arrogant a couple times throughout the story. A quarter at least and 35 cents if the suitcase was too heavy. Now, I could have carried that suitcase to my room. I thought that it just came along with the hotel room. This is totally poor person's mentality, and this is totally me too, man. I hate handing over money to all the poor people in the room. All the poor people in the room. Shout out. I hate handing over money to people for doing things I could just do myself. Everyone knows this if you've been poor before. 10% was what you should tip a person, but I never had the right change. I felt silly. Give me 35 cents back. It does feel silly. It's so funny complaining about tipping. This is such a it's such a bonding experience. I'm glad that all of us could bond about complaining about tipping. Because America has fucking lost the plot since COVID. Oh my god, it's actually more ridiculous now. Guys, if you're gonna go to the States for the university, just be ready for. You're gonna get used to it, but for the first month, it's gonna feel painful trying to figure out. There's no just pretend there's no reasons for it, okay? Just chalk it up to like the absurdity of living in a different country. Because I get angry when I think about it. When I try to think of a reason for it, I get angry. Lady, I gotta live like you and everybody else. Which scared me so much I ran. 10 cents. The first time I took a taxi in New York, I tipped the driver 10 cents because I thought 10 cents was exactly right. Gave the driver my dime with a little flourish and a smile. She was confident. Hilarious. This is actually a funny. You know what's kind of underrated or just completely went unmentioned in my pre-reading. All of these Goodreads comments, all of these little blogs on Google. Not a single time was it mentioned that this book is just like a good little crash course in living in the city as a non-city person. You know, it's a little bit of it's like a little bit of a guide of a country girl's guide to New York. You know, and it has that vibe here. All the embarrassing little moments. And that's not the whole depressing thing that everyone talks about. This is actually kind of cute, if anything. Just a quick pause. I'm trying to connect that for like a sort of guy's analogy. It's funny because weirdly enough, I think guys don't communicate practical tips through literature. I wonder what the sociological reasoning for that might be, but imagine, yeah, was it maybe a little bit from movies, but like you'll see in movies, like scenes of how maybe groups of guys try to play smooth, like buying drinks for girls and like sparking up the conversation. But to an extent, that's a little bit of an education on how to be socially savvy in like situation in like the city, like how to behave to be a smooth operator in the city. Like, do you buy the girl a drink or whatever? So it's kind of like that, except it's the country girl's guide to New York City. Okay, I was just trying to make an analogy so you kind of can relate it to yourself more directly. But anyway, that's the best I could do at the moment. Moving on. Yeah. I flipped through one story, fig tree. Oh, this is a famous passage. Give me a second. I'm going to slow down here. I reached for the book the people from Ladies' Days had sent. Card fell out. A poodle in a flower bed jacket. Poodle basket with a sad face. Poodle lying down with a smile. You'll get well best with lots and lots of rest. At the bottom of the card, get well quick from all your friends at Ladies' Day in lavender ink. I flipped through one story after another until finally I came to a story about a fig tree. I'm sorry, new setting, and I just I failed to transition to the new setting mentally in my head. So I just need to. What I'm doing is I'm going to slow down and just figure out what's in this setting. There's a fig tree. There's a green lawn. There's a house and a convent. There we go. The house is Jewish. The convent is Catholic. Got it. And the fig tree has symbolic meaning in the Bible. Definitely in the New Testament for sure, so the Catholic side. But almost certainly in the Old Testament as well. I just can't think of one. So we're literally, this fig tree is a symbol for both cultures, the Jewish and the Christian. And now we have a physical staging of that symbol in between the two sides. Jewish man, beautiful dark nun, kept meeting to pick the ripe figs. An egg hatched. They watch the little bird peck its way out of the egg. Okay, it's a hatching. Sorry, I missed the word hatching. They touch the backs of their hands together. Oh, they were standing side by side and they kind of brushed each other. Okay? I guess on accident. And then the nun didn't come out to pick figs with the Jewish man anymore, but a mean-faced Catholic kitchen maid. And the man was furious that they would start accounting for the figs. What a mysterious little and kind of true feeling story. Okay, now this is not the famous passage that I was thinking of, but what a mysterious little thing where the accident of a Jewish man and a Catholic nun brushing up against each other leads to a little hardening, a bit of hate. And it feels very true. It feels like the kind of thing that actually happens in real life. Sort of unintentional. There's something beautiful happening. A little baby bird is being born, and you're watching it. You're sort of in awe. Something happens, and it ruins it. It ruins it. The Jewish man touched the Catholic nun. Now they're starting to count up all the. That's such a crazy. That's a crazy little story. And speaking of which, there was a whole set of TikToks that was criticizing this book for being anti-Semitic. But the first time that a Jewish person comes out, a Jewish character comes out in the story, it's actually the Jewish character that sounds like the nice guy. Okay, so here. So there. Touché. It was a lovely story, especially about the fig tree in winter under the snow. I felt sorry when I came to the last page. I want to sleep under the big fig tree. Buddy Willard and I were like the Jewish man and the nun. We had met together under our own imaginary fig tree. We saw a baby coming out of a woman. Whoa! Something awful happened. I don't know what the hypocrisy is. She called Buddy Willard a hypocrite. I'm gonna guess he impregnated someone else. But you guys both saw the baby coming out of the woman? Then something, the abortion? They killed the baby afterwards? I can't tell what it is. I can't tell what it is. Okay. Yeah, contrast with the fig tree meaning yes and yes, this is intense. So earlier I was criticizing that paragraph for kind of like being a little lame with the foreshadowing, but now I mean it still did its work. Now it's just sort of wiggling in my ear. Like I kind of want to know what this hypocrisy is. So maybe doctors and writers could get along fine after all. Maybe Buddy Willard is trying to be a doctor? Now, this is a very different tune, what he had been singing all the 2 years we got to know each other. A Piece of Dust, a poem, A Piece of Dust. His blonde hair, blue eyes, white teeth, long, strong white teeth. I guess so. This was when she liked him. A whole year later, in the middle of New York, she comes up with a response. I spent a lot of time having imaginary conversations with Buddy Willard. He's very scientific. He could always prove things. I had to work to keep my head above water. Okay. When she was still infatuated with him, these conversations would finish with him coming up with like a witty retort instead of just saying "I guess so," because "I guess so" is losing, right? Do you know what a poem is? No, what? A piece of dust. Then, just as he was smiling, I would say, "So are the cadavers you cut up. They're dust as dust as dust. I reckon a good poem lasts a whole lot longer." This is kind of juvenile, actually. This is kind of childish, okay? Her comeback is actually not that good. You know what I mean? Interesting. It's interesting. Now it gets kind of interesting because this is Sylvia Plath versus Esther Greenwood. Esther Greenwood sounds a little childish. So people criticized this book when this book first came out as being childish, puerile, juvenile, right? And the question is Sylvia Plath writing Esther Greenwood intentionally as a little bit childish? I think so. I would assume so. I would assume we should give her enough credit as a writer that this was an intentional choice. That we shouldn't conflate Sylvia Plath, the writer, with Esther Greenwood, the character who is very similar to Sylvia Plath, you know. But we shouldn't conflate them. We shouldn't combine them into one person. Because this is not a good comeback, man. Because it's just not. My trouble was I took everything he said as the honest to God truth. I believed him. The first night he kissed me, Yale junior prom. Oh, she was younger. He was in college, and she might have been in college. She might have been still in high school. I don't know. It was strange. Looking so handsome. Flabbergasted. I'd only seen him at church. Oh, she was also in college, though. I couldn't figure what had put it into his head to run over and see me. He had run the 2 miles between our houses for cross-country practice. Oh, he was fit. He was tall. He had white teeth. Cross-country. He's a Yale boy. Mothers are good friends. They both married their professors. Hilarious. The good old days when you could just marry your student. I'm kidding, guys. But Buddy was always off on a scholarship at prep school. Mothers being old school chums didn't really matter. I don't know what fighting blister rust is, but whatever. He's kind of doing some sort of work. After this sudden visit, I didn't hear a word from Buddy. So he visited her for the Christmas vacation, and maybe he asked her out to prom later on. And then one fine Saturday morning in March, the phone rang in the hall. It's a public phone. I was the only freshman, so they made her answer it. Is that you, Esther? The girl on watch downstairs said. There's a man to see you. Ooh, how romantic. That's the shit that doesn't happen these days, by the way, because of technology and constant communication. You don't really get surprise visits anymore. You can still do it. And actually, I wonder if you high schoolers still do it. You kind of do it artificially. You don't communicate. You just try to surprise the other person. And no, you guys probably still do it now that I think about it. But like, unless you're intentionally trying to be romantic, I don't think you'll ever do this again. But yeah. I was surprised to hear this. Out of all of the blind dates I'd had that year, not one called me up again for a second date. Probably because you're arrogant, overly literary, a little bit of a creep. I hated coming downstairs, having some senior introduce me to her aunt's best friend's son, and finding some pale, mushroomy fellow with protruding ears or buck teeth or bad. So I didn't think I deserved. I wasn't crippled. I just studied too hard. That's such a funny cope. I wasn't crippled in it. I just studied too hard. And I didn't know when to stop. I'm just a nerd, man. Why do I have to get all these ugly boys? That is such a funny cope. And it makes sense why a lot of nerdy girls in high school would really vibe with this book, because this is a book for the little nerdy girls in high school and college, and they're frustrated sexually because they get that one guy who is actually hot and smart. Turns out he's a douchebag. He's a hypocrite for some reason, and ruins her standards. Right now, no one can be as good as him. No, this is the one guy that was not too short for her, Oh, are you talking about this pale mushroomy fellow with the protruding ears or buck teeth or a bad leg? Yeah, maybe this guy. But yes, Buddy is not too short for her. Buddy's the one guy. It ruined all future guys for her. Well, I combed my hair, put on some more lipstick, took my history book. Buddy Willard, blue dungarees, frayed gray sneakers. When I was young and poor, I would look at these descriptions of clothes and I just wouldn't even notice them. But now that I'm older, I've spent money, I've earned money, I've spent money, and I kind of know the social meaning of clothes. I read these descriptions to kind of get a sense of the vibe, and what kind of effect that the clothes might have on the other characters. He's kind of in a sort of a extremely casual, sort of like kind of frumpy, sort of like kind of sort of dingy vibes. I don't know what this is. He hitchhiked from Yale just to say hello. Let's sit on the porch because the girl on watch was nosy. She obviously thought Buddy had made a big mistake because Buddy is too good looking for her. So the senior is like, why is Buddy here for this little nerdy freshman? That's cute. It's kind of like, it's like the classic romance movie setup, right? The guy that's too good for the girl. Oh, come on, stay for lunch. I can't. I'm up here for the sophomore prom with Joan. I felt like an idiot. How is Joan? I asked coldly. Came from our hometown, went to our church, year ahead of me at college, big wheel, president of her class, physics major. Man, her hometown had a lot of smart people, but also both of their moms married professors, so it's kind of like it's like a college town. Starry, pebble-colored eyes. Okay. There are some people who have a sort of starry eyes, They kind of like look like they're staring all the time. Gleaming tombstone teeth and her breathy voice. She's big as a horse. I began to think Buddy had pretty poor taste. That's actually a funny sentence. I kind of like the sentence. I like this whole sentence, this whole setup. Okay. Oh, Joan, She asked me up to this dance 2 months ahead of time, and her mother asked my mother if I would take her. So what could I do? Oh, so he could tell she was pissed. How is Joan? And then, well, why did you say you'd take her if you didn't want to? I like Joan, and she never cares whether you spend any money on her or not, and she enjoys doing things out of doors. Bicycle trip. And she's the only girl I haven't had to push up hills. Joan's all right. I went cold with envy. So this is the hypocrisy, I'm guessing. He's downplaying her interest, his what he did with Joan, and he's playing with her heart, with Esther's heart. You better go and find Joan then. This is a very girl. Yes, this is yes, this is exactly how she should react. I have a date coming any minute. A date? It's 2. Peter. Oh, that's actually funny. Peter the Hermit and Walter the Penniless. Wait. Give me a second, because this is actually what was going on here. Yeah, she was studying about Peter the Hermit. She was studying about Peter the Hermit and Walter the Penniless for her history exam. So this is just a sort of joke. So up until here, this is a classic girl reaction, right? Because you want to sort of like edge the guy into being more of a guy, into being more of a man and making a choice. And then this is actually not a classic girl reaction, to directly be ironical about it and say these two historical figures. But then she does lie about it, and then it says they're from Dartmouth, which is so funny. He never read much history because his mouth stiffened. And he got upset. Aw, he's upset. I was so surprised I let out a couple of yips. I'm going. Amazement and respect. Started respecting her. Buddy treated me like a friend or a cousin. I mean, girl, you kind of did it to yourself. I mean, of course he's going to treat you like a friend or okay. I mean, also, you guys are childhood friends, so obviously it's going to be a little bit awkward. He rested his chin on top of my head. It's funny because it is a little juvenile. I mean, I do get a lot of like teenage romance vibes, and I think this is Sylvia Plath writing as like a 30-year-old, right, or close to a 30-year-old. Maybe I should go and double check. I kind of forgot. Let me go double check how old. My shortcut's suddenly not working. Very annoying. Oh, there we go. Sylvia Plath and the Bell Jar. Yeah. How old was she when she wrote this? So this was published in 1963. And then published in the States much later. And then she began writing in 1961. And she was maybe, how old was she at the time? 1961. She was 28, 29, depending on which time of year. But she was just before 20. Yeah, she was 29-ish when she started writing it. Okay. So, considering that, it does sound a bit like I get the criticisms. You know, it does sound a little childish. You know, it sounds kind of like young adult fiction to some extent. He rested his chin on top of my head. Cute scene. Then in the cold black 3 o'clock wind, we walked very slowly 5 miles back. I felt dull and flat and full of shattered visions. Oh. Aw. There's a beautiful view up there behind the chemistry lab. The sort of ups and downs of like the girls' expectations, like classic. I kept my eyes open and tried. Oh, that's so cute. While he kissed me, I kept my eyes open and tried to memorize the spacing of the house lights so I would never forget them. That is so adorable. God. Oh, to be young. Oh, to be young. Finally, Buddy stepped back. Wow, he said. That's the first reaction. Don't do that, guys. When you have your friend, don't do that. Don't say wow. Wow, what? I said, surprised. It had been a dry, uninspiring little kiss. We were chapped. Wow, it makes me feel terrific to kiss you. You know what? You can say that. You know why you can say that? You can say that. I know it sounds stupid as hell. But sometimes sounding stupid as hell, but being sincere, it's just the way it is. Wow, it makes me feel terrific to kiss you. Yeah, dude. Never mind. Do say that. Say wow after you kiss somebody, guys. Oh my God. Love it. It's so funny and embarrassing and a little cringy and cute all at the same time. I guess you go out with a lot of boys, Buddy said then. Ooh, a little passive aggressive there. Okay. Well, I guess I do. I thought I must have gone out with a different boy for every week in the year. Well, I have to study a lot. So do I. Still, I think I can manage to see you every third weekend. That's nice. She's trying to play it cool. She's trying not to be too giddy, which, again, classic romance, teenage romance. Kiss me again in front of the house. Went there to see him instead of Yale. I found out on the day we saw the baby. He was already a dad. There we go. Bastard. Interesting. So far, for the first 5 chapters, we got a pretty much just a teen novel, man. But it's not teen. She's actually 21. But pretty much just a sort of young girl's romance novel, while being sort of introduced to her, getting a rough introduction to the city. We are feeling a little ambivalent about her friend in the city, Doreen. On the one hand, she's a little wild. She's just like with Lenny. On the other hand, she's smart and she's caring, and she's the only one she really connects to. We have JC. That's a whole ass responsibility, just to make a Spider-Man shout out. Like, Spider-Man has to be like a teacher at a high school, at the same time as being a hero, at the same time as being right. So that's the thing that's happening with Esther Greenwood. She has to be a good writer and live up to her potential for JC. Right? So that she can keep going on. But her love life is a huge part. Unlike Peter Parker just has one person that he likes. For Esther Greenwood, a lot of her sort of like self-esteem and a lot of her life is about her romance. And she's meeting a lot of boys through getting dates set up, blind dates set up through her friends. By the way, just a bit of interesting history. I didn't realize that blind dates were such a big part of the culture, the college culture back in the day. blind dates were huge in Korea. Like the last, maybe are still huge to some extent in Korea, and it's like a major way that people meet each other in Korea. Not so much in America anymore, but it was surprising for me to see blind dates being such a big part of her life, of this character's life. Getting blind dates almost every week in college, right? Meeting some random aunt's best friend's son, right? And being disappointed by all of them. Which, by the way, is pretty standard experience for especially for a girl, I think. It's pretty standard experience for blind dates. You just like meet a lot of dudes who are very much just like so that whole thing's happening. The romance is happening. It's a very big part of her life. She really wants to be in love with somebody and to be loved by somebody and to have something to do, because she's kind of unstable. She doesn't have much going on in her life. She's depressed. She just wants to be in bed all day, right? She's not feeling confident in her writing and her career. Lots going on there. So up until now, we actually have something akin to even just like the Peter Parker story, or like a sort of young person story. Nothing too crazy yet. The only crazy bit was I can think of two right now, actually. So the two crazy bits that I can think of that makes this a little bit different from like a sort of like a triple A production, like a major blockbuster production, which, because these huge productions, they sanitize everything. They get rid of all of the sort of edgy bits because they don't want to offend anyone, right? The only two sort of edgy things that are happening here is number one, there's a little bit of literary experimentation where the transitions happen kind of unexpectedly, and I'm trying to figure out what to make of that. Okay, and that's a technical bit of difficulty that we have to work with, that makes it less smooth reading. And then the other one is the immediate sex, right? The immediate raunchiness. We had Doreen, just like, and Lenny, just like chapter 2, dude. Just like, whoa, that was a lot. And I didn't know what was gonna happen with this stranger. I thought he might like rape her. It was very tense for a while. Turns out they end up being like a couple and everything. But yeah, so that bit of raciness and the sort of like technical literariness of like the settings, those are the only two things that kind of differentiates this for me from a more sort of easy reading, kind of like teen, or young adults kind of coming of age story. Okay, so far pretty vanilla. Now I'm pretty excited to see how it gets more twisted and dark and fucked up, because that's what this story is famous for. It's famous for being super dark. So I'm looking forward to what happens there. I'm just noticing on my screen we have the disillusionment that happens with Buddy. Buddy the bastard, the cheating bastard who has a whole ass child while he's flirting with Esther, so that whole thing. Not super interested in what happens with Buddy. I'm pretty sure he's just going to be dispatched pretty quickly. And we're going to get into the psychology of Esther Greenwood pretty quickly. That's my general sense of how the story will progress. All right, I'll see you. Lack of understanding of the culture. I just realized there's a couple things I didn't respond to. Lack of understanding of the culture. Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. And I mean, I would say that probably explains why it's easier to get into translated works like Russian novels, like Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, because the translated classics don't rely as much on specific cultural knowledge of like the like the 1900s New York, right? 1950s New York. I think it's like Russia tends to be a little easier to understand. I'm not trying to downplay how complex Russian civilization and history is. It's very complex, lots of layers, lots of shit happens there, right? But you can kind of access it better when you're just thinking of things like landlord relationships, like a repressed arts community relationship, oppressive government or incompetent government to individual relationship. Those are a little easier to access, right? Because you kind of learn a lot about that through your history classes. And if that's the backdrop, then you don't have to have all these like specific cultural things about like in this book, the Rosenbergs, or like the pop, like the fashion of the 1950s. You don't have to learn any of that. That's really specific. It's just kind of like which generation, which culture, which decade is your vibe. Like once you get into the 1950s and 60s, right? Then the other 1950s, like there's a lot of music and a lot of art and a lot of visual art, a lot of music, but a lot of like literary arts that came out in the 1950s and 60s, right? You have like the Beatles, you have like the R&B, you have like the artists, the what do you call them? The post impressionists, expressionists. Oh frick! Abstract expressionism, I forget what the title is, but you get like these like modern art movements in New York, and so once you start learning about that era, then books written in that era also become easier. So it kind of just depends on which historical era you vibe with, and that actually does change the kind of literature that you want to read as well. In the Russian novels, you're gonna get a bunch of galoshes, which is like a type of boot. And in the 1950s Sylvia Plath novel, you're gonna get denim suits. You're gonna get, you're just gonna get different references. So it is a natural part of the reading journey that you don't really connect with certain eras, and you connect with other eras. You don't really connect with certain cultures. You actually connect with other cultures. That is a totally natural part of the reading process. It's just that as you read more and more and more and more, you're going to be able to access more and more and more and more. You're going to be able to feel more connected to more parts of literature. Yeah. So don't see it as like a obstacle. Just see it as part of the process of growing. And don't force yourself to read something you're not interested in. Keep reading the thing you're interested in, but you'll naturally start learning a little bit more. If you read a bunch of Russian literature, you might start reading a little bit more like continental European literature, maybe French literature. You might be able to swing around to English. Everyone has their own journey. The Russians directly influenced a lot of modern English writers as well. So you might just go straight from, like Leo, like Tolstoy, Dostoevsky to like, I don't know, Oscar Wilde maybe, stuff like that. Maybe like James Joyce and all that stuff. If you try to press yourself onto like really hard stuff, then you might just fail. You might just burn out. So yeah, that's my tips. Just lean into what you actually like and just kind of let it unfold from there. Yeah. And I do recommend, guys, if you even if you don't fully read chapters 6 through 10, like you don't have to understand everything. If you just kind of half read it, right? You half understand it, and you go to Spark Notes or whatever, and you kind of get the summary of chapter 6 through 10. And if you do that before my next stream, then when you watch me actually react to the same thing that you read, you'll have like a half memory of everything that you read, and then you'll be able to see how I interpret the same thing that you read, and I am pretty sure that's going to be a very useful learning experience for you. And moreover, it should make it even more enjoyable for you to watch the stream. Yeah, I see. Want to do that? Makes you dizzy. When you say the text is so long for reading, you're talking about this text. You're not talking about the SAT, right? The digital SAT text is very short. It has changed. All right. I mean, it's been a long stream for me. I think I've been streaming for 2.5 hours, 3.5 hours. 3.5 hours. Oh my God. I've been streaming for 3.5 hours. Holy crap. So, wow. Okay. So, guys, I'm like tired. Sudeep, it sounds like you have some worries about the SAT. I encourage you to join our Discord server. And if you are not at level 1 yet in my Discord server, just ask the questions in newcomers chat and chat about the SAT in newcomers chat. You will very quickly get to level 1, and you'll be able to access the rest of the server. Okay? And ask the questions that you're talking about right now in the Discord server, and some people will get to you. And when I have time and energy, I might get to you as well. Okay? So I encourage you to keep the conversation going there. And to wrap this up, I just want to say you can actually see this by clicking on the description. Okay, if you just click on the description down here, you'll see the schedule. But I will be reading chapters 6 through 10 next week, same time. So if you would like to join along with me on the book club, go ahead and read chapters 6 through 10 before this time next week and chat with me during the stream. I was really happy to have viewers here with me, reading along with me. That was awesome. You guys are total troopers. You guys have been watching for a very long time. Glad to have you here. And I'm looking forward to the next stream. By the way, if you are studying for the SAT, just quick note, I am doing a couple paid programs. Give me advice, give me structure, and give me knowledge. You can learn more about my paid programs in the links in the description below. Okay. Basically, you have to join my YouTube membership, and you'll be able to join a couple other people studying for the SAT. All right, guys, I gotta go. I have to like do a bunch of work today, so that'll be it for me. Until next time, keep on learning, keep on growing. Peace, guys.